Hello everyone, my name is Dominique Filas and I am the A&R Program Assistant at UGA Extension in Clayton County, and I am going to be presenting repurposing materials. Climate change and global warming are really hot topics right now, literally. Greenhouse gases continue to rise, which makes our planet grow hotter and hotter and hotter. So what can we do to reverse this? How can we break the cycle? We may not be able to do it all individually, but something that could definitely help aid in the healing process is to learn to repurpose old materials. Surprisingly, repurposing does not mean the same thing as reusing. Environmentally speaking, reusing materials means to use a product that has already been used before instead of buying or making a new product. Repurposing means to use a product in a different way than it was originally used. For example, you can reuse a tire as a tire in your car. You can also repurpose that tire to become a swing or a raised bed. Another word for repurposing materials is to upcycle. The definition of upcycling is the same as repurposing. You may have heard the term upcycle recently, as it has gained a lot of popularity in recent years. Repurposing materials helps aid in healing our environment by the simple fact that you are reducing waste. Reducing waste also reduces the amount of trash going into landfills, which is something that will help reduce greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Recycling is to process something in order to regain material for human use. In other words, to reuse or make a substance available for reuse for biological activities through natural processes of biochemical degradation or modification. A common question asked throughout the environmental community is why? Why does it matter whether we repurpose or recycle? The difference between upcycling and recycling is that recycling includes the process of downcycling. When things are recycled, they are either upcycled or downcycled. Downcycling and the items produced from waste materials are of a lower value and quality than the original item or material. Examples of this is paper and plastics. When they are recycled, they're turned into a lower grade paper or plastic. Upcycled products and the items produced from waste materials are of a higher value and quality than the original item or material. Unlike recycled products, upcycled pieces retain and sometimes even enhance the look and feel of the original discarded materials. So with downcycling items, you get less life out of it than upcycled products. The longer you can use something, the less it will contribute to waste. Also, it takes fossil fuel energy to recycle things, and on the other hand, it doesn't take any sort of energy to repurpose besides physical exertion. Examples of this is using skateboards to make chairs, a stepladder turned into shelving, or using bike chains to make chandeliers. A great example of upcycling is something that one of my old roommates used to do. He created a business that sells jewelry made completely from recycled skateboards. All bracelets, beads, watches, earrings, ashtrays, and more items are all made from repurposed skateboards. They're environmentally conscious by designing jewelry that wouldn't be compostable, but is now recycled into bracelets, and it requires no need to use new wood, which contributes to reducing waste. Skateboards are typically made from treated woods, which doesn't break down so easily in the natural environment. Old skateboards are cut into pieces. Then the pieces are sanded and shaped into beads, watch parts, and earrings. After that, the items are engraved by a laser. The parts are stained, soft sanded, and sprayed with a gloss finish. Lastly, the bracelets and watches are assembled. Then they are packaged, sold, and shipped. I could literally go on and on and on about climate change. I've written over 100 pages about climate change, and if you're interested in a climate change video, I'd be happy to present that for you. But today we will simplify the topic. It's much better to recycle and upcycle when you can, because if you make absolutely no effort to reduce what you consume, reuse what you consume, or recycle, you basically are just throwing things in the landfill for fun. There are lots of personal choices that you can make besides recycling, such as water conservation, using biodegradable and renewable products, using chemical-free products, tree-free products, minimizing or eliminating your waste, reusing furniture and clothes, or educating your neighbors to live ecologically conscious. But in everything you do, you need to be aware of the amount of waste you're producing so that you can begin to make a change. To break it down, let's briefly talk about the greenhouse effect and why this relates to repurposing materials. This description of the greenhouse effect comes from the Department of Agriculture, Water, and the Environment of the Australian government, and is a good source to view if you would like to find more information about climate change. The greenhouse effect is a natural process that warms the Earth's surface. When the sun's energy reaches the Earth's atmosphere, some of it is reflected back to space and the rest is absorbed and re-radiated by greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases include water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, ozone, and some artificial chemicals such as chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs. The absorbed energy warms the atmosphere and the surface of the Earth. This process maintains the Earth's temperature at around 33 degrees Celsius warmer than it would otherwise be, allowing life on Earth to exist. So if you look at the diagram, you'll see how the greenhouse effects work. Step 1. Solar radiation reaches the Earth's atmosphere. Some of this is reflected back into space. Step 2. The rest of the sun's energy is absorbed by the land and the oceans, heating the Earth. Step 3. Heat radiates from the Earth towards space. Step 4. Some of this heat is trapped by greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, keeping the Earth warm enough to sustain life. Step 5. Human activities such as fossil fuels, agriculture, and land clearing are increasing the amount of greenhouse gases released into the atmosphere. And lastly, Step 6. This is trapping extra heat and causing the Earth's temperature to rise. Why is the heat on the Earth getting trapped? To understand this, you must understand the power of clouds. Clouds are a contributing factor to climate change and how hot or cold this Earth gets. Clouds affect climate change in two major ways. They are an essential part of the water cycle. Clouds provide an important link between the rain and the snow, oceans and lakes, and plants and animals. Clouds also have an important effect on Earth's temperature. Clouds can both cool down and warm up Earth's temperature. Clouds can trap heat from the sun, and during the night when there is no sunlight, clouds are still trapping heat. There are different types of clouds that have different purposes. The reason why solar radiation and infrared radiation stays on Earth and very little is directed out is because of our clouds. There are 3 different types of clouds. There are high albedo clouds and lower albedo clouds. There are also what we call middle clouds, but this isn't relevant to the topic, just know that they exist. So high albedo, lower clouds are clouds that are lower in the sky and appear more white. Lower albedo, higher clouds are clouds that are higher in the sky and appear with more of a gray tint. The term albedo comes from the Latin word for white. It's common knowledge that white reflects and black absorbs. So the whiter something is, the more it reflects, and the darker something is, the more it absorbs. An example is when it snows. Typically when it snows, it appears to be much brighter than the average summer day. That's because the snow is reflecting the sunlight, but it remains cold because it isn't absorbing the solar radiation. This means that with high albedo clouds, it reflects 80% of that solar radiation back into space. And with low albedo clouds, it absorbs the most of the radiation and only reflects 10% of that radiation back into space. The greenhouse gases and carbon dioxide that we produce make low albedo high clouds and causes more radiation to get trapped in than we want. This is why it's so important to reduce the amount of fossil fuels that each individual person uses so that we can lower the amount of greenhouse gases being trapped in Earth's atmosphere. So while we can do smaller things that can help reduce, I just want to briefly go over some of the mitigation methods that scientists are implementing to help regulate climate change back into its natural cycle. Geoengineering is modifying the Earth's climate through artificial modifications. There are two types of artificial modifications that are typically used in geoengineering. The first one is solar radiation management, or SRM. The second is carbon dioxide removal, or CDR. There are a few methods of geoengineering, some of which are relevant to the SRM method. Bear with me, this is a little bit long, but we can make it through. So some of the methods include stratospheric aerosol injection, or SAI, marine cloud brightening, or MCB, or ground albedo modification, or GBAM. So according to Solar Radiation Management Governance Initiative, solar radiation management, also known as solar geoengineering, is a theoretical approach to reduce some of the impacts of climate change by reflecting a small amount of inbound sunlight back into space. So SRM doesn't directly take greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere, but it basically does the same thing as high albedo clouds. It'll reflect some of the solar radiation back into space so that the excess heat from that solar radiation will not be absorbed by the Earth. This is the fastest way to stop the increase in global temperatures and can also cool the Earth. A few SRM techniques involve the stratospheric aerosol injection method, or SAI. SAI replicates the effect of a volcanic eruption without the lava. It creates a barrier between the Earth and the Sun. These particles will reflect a small amount of sunlight back into the Earth, therefore decreasing the amount of heat coming into the planet. So another method of SRM is marine cloud brightening, or MCB. This method includes spraying drops of water from the sea into marine stratus clouds that cover the ocean. The effect of spraying water will cause clouds to become more white, which will increase the number of the high albedo clouds. Having more high albedo clouds will cause the Earth to become cooler because this contributes SRM. There are more than just these techniques to geoengineering. Another method of geoengineering that has the capability of reversing climate change is ground albedo modification, or GBAM. This is also known as surface albedo modification. GBAM is a method of reflecting solar radiation back into space by using ground level methods to do so. The goal is to reflect light back into space by modifying land areas like farmland, deserts, or snowy areas. Some people suggest that having a snowy area clear of trees that stand in between those clouds and the sun to help reflect solar radiation. The high albedo of snow will act as a mirror and bounce the rays back. This will help cool the planet. Other geoengineers argue and say that clearing forests to create these areas would be a negative thing, as it would decrease biodiversity and reduce the amount of trees that will help with absorbing carbon dioxide molecules. On the other hand, there is a method of GBAM that would actually increase the amount of plants absorbing carbon dioxide. By having farmland covered with high albedo crops such as maize and barley, this will help reflect some of that solar energy back into space. Trees have low albedo, which actually absorbs some of the heat. So the best way to combat climate change is to have a balance within our ecosystems. If we are able to convert farmland into high albedo farms, we may be able to reverse the effects of climate change. This diagram, I'm sorry, I forgot to include the diagram, but I had a diagram that shows how surface albedo modification reflects the solar radiation back into space by having the sheet of ice work as a mirror. Carbon dioxide removal, or CDR, is the last method we will be talking about. Carbon dioxide removal is also known as thermodynamics. Carbon dioxide removal is the process of removing CO2 from the Earth's atmosphere using artificial methods. There are multiple ways to remove excess carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. One way is capturing carbon dioxide and compressing it to store it in geologic reservoirs. This isn't cost-effective currently, but this may be used in the near future. Another method of CDR is called ocean iron fertilization. Ocean iron fertilization is when geoengineers and scientists add iron to the ocean so that they can increase algae blooms. These plants are great carbon filtering plants. However, there might be a backfire on the ocean's ecosystem. There are also similar approaches that add minerals such as magnesium oxide or calcium to the ocean. Now that we've talked about the science behind climate change and why we need to be more ecologically aware of the things that we consume, we're going to be going over just a few items that can be repurposed. The items that can be repurposed that we will be discussing today is water, glass bottles, mason or any glass jars, paper and newspaper, paint buckets, food, chicken wire, wooden pallets, picture frames, broken pots, old rugs, broken earrings, fake flowers, and old crayons. Water. To become more water conscious, we have the option of watering your plants with water that has already been used, as long as it doesn't have toxic chemicals. Some examples of water that can be reused is dishwater, bath water, and water that was used to wash clothes. Most people living in the average American household have no reason to contemplate disposal of the water that enters and leaves their homes, but more and more people are looking for a simple way to do a gray water system for their home. Water can be categorized in 3 sections. We have clean water, which comes from springs, wells, purified water, distilled water, city water, and rainwater. Then you have gray water, which is used water without toxic chemicals and excrement. The last section is black water, which is contaminated water with toxic chemicals and excrement. While excrement can be flushed and not cause too much of a problem in the environment naturally, toxic chemicals will definitely cause problems, so that's why it's important for you to use as many clean products as you possibly can. Here you can see the basics of a water system. You'll see how the washer can be switched with a brand valve to either go to the sewer or the outside irrigation. The water then travels outside into the garden and finally into drip points above mulch beds or trees. Glass bottles. Instead of recycling those glass bottles, try repurposing them. You can either reuse glass bottles and turn them into drinking bottles for water or juices, or you can repurpose it into a lamp. First, you're going to want to get some fairy string lights. You can order them from Amazon or buy them at a local craft store. Then, take the label off. If you soak the glass in hot water, a little oil, and some soap, you should be able to scrub the label off quite easily after about 30 minutes to an hour. After this step, you are going to want to cut a slit into the center of the bottle cap so that you can leave a trail out to plug into the wall. You also have the option of buying a set of fairy lights that's battery powered. After cleaning, drying, and peeling off the label, you're going to want to shove all of the lights inside of the bottle and slide the trail end of the light in the slit of the cap. Simply plug in and voila, you have a DIY fairy lamp. For even more fun, you can paint the lamp with really cool designs or possibly have different color lights to add a little more flair. You can also spray the bottle with glitter adhesive to add more sparkle to your light. Glass and mason jars. This DIY hack is one that is so simple and easy, and there really isn't a reason for not doing it. If you have an old mason jar from maybe a candle or a bottle of coconut oil, clean out the inside of the bottle. If you want to get coconut oil residue from the glass, just wash with hot water and soap. If you have leftover wax from a candle, you're going to want to pour boiling water into the glass and then wait for it to cool off. The wax will slowly collect and float to the top, so that when it cools, you can easily peel the layer of wax from the top of the water. Another fun hack that you can try with this is to save the collected wax and make your own candle from that. After you're done cleaning the inside of the mason jar, feel free to use it for whatever you like. I personally have old candle jars that I use in my kitchen. As you can see, these 2 jars used to be candles that I bought from Kroger, and now I use them for dry bean storage. The first jar has dried garbanzo beans or chickpeas, and the second jar has dried lentils. The jar seal is shut so it always keeps them fresh and dry. Newspapers. Do you have an abundance of newspapers or just pages of nonsense and junk mail in some drawer in your house? I know all that junk mail collects dust on top of your microwave or in a basket somewhere in your house. Or maybe I'm the only one who hoards junk mail, I don't know. Either way, if you're like me, where you have a bunch of junk mail and old pages of notebook after notebook from college that you keep around in case you need them, it's time to clean house. Something you can do besides dropping them off at the recycling center is to make paper clay. If you enjoy making arts and crafts at home or with your kids, this is a simple project that is not only fun to make, but also can be used to make extremely cool decorations around your house. While this is an easy make, it does take a few steps to make this the right way, and I'm not going to go into much detail. Just know that this is something cool you can do with the excess of paper in your home, and in my sources, I'll refer you to a page that gives you a very thorough recipe for it. Paint buckets. Believe it or not, you can actually grow herbs and food in 5-gallon paint buckets. While container gardening isn't a new concept, maybe growing in a paint bucket is a little more unheard of. But when you think about it, it's absolutely possible to grow plants in paint buckets. You don't need a huge backyard to grow food because this is a huge space saver. Some of the plants that you can grow in paint buckets include tomatoes, cucumbers, melons, squash, eggplant, peppers, beans, onions, lettuce, beets, carrots, and radishes. Collect your 5-gallon buckets. If friends or neighbors have extras, ask them if you can have it. You can even go on certain apps like Nextdoor or buy-sell trade groups and ask if anyone would like to donate paint buckets to you. Now that you've collected your paint buckets, go ahead and make holes in the bottom for drainage. You'll want plenty of holes for this because water can accumulate in a small container very quickly. Use a drill or punch holes with a nail and hammer. One hole about every 3 inches is a good amount. If you would like, paint the buckets however you want. This gives your buckets a much nicer appearance. Then plant your vegetables how you would normally. Set them up in a nice sunny spot and just watch your vegetables grow. Many herbs grow very well in buckets. One plant will spread to fill the entire container. Food waste. Something that people don't typically think about as a repurposed material is food. You can repurpose food as compost. According to the EPA, compost is an organic material that can be added to soil to help plants grow. Food scraps and yard waste together currently make up about 30% of what we throw away and should be composted instead. Making compost keeps these materials out of landfills where they take up space and release methane, a potent greenhouse gas. Some things you can compost are food scraps like baked goods, cereal and pasta, dairy, meat, produce, and vegetables. You may want to reduce or exclude meat waste if you want to keep smells down and reduce bacteria. If you do include meat and dairy waste in your compost pile, make sure you cover it with pine straw or other yard debris waste to eliminate the smell. You can also compost non-recyclable paper like napkins, paper cups, paper plates, paper towels, greasy pizza boxes, tissues, and wax paper. Yard debris is also compostable, like branches, brush, flowers, grass clippings, leaves, and woods. There are other miscellaneous items that you can compost, like pet hair, coffee grounds and filters, tea bags, wooden chopsticks, and wooden popsicle sticks. The following information comes from the Planet Natural website, and if you want to read more, go to their page, which will be linked in the sources. Soil building done this way is the perfect lazy person's gardening project. Unlike weeding or double digging, which takes a lot of time and physical effort, a compost pile pretty much takes care of itself. You have 2 different types of compost bins, stationary and rotating. Both types must have their contents turned periodically to provide oxygen and combine decaying materials. Stationary bins can be as simple as well-ventilated cages made from wire fence sections or wooden crates assembled from a kit. A well-designed bin will retain heat and moisture, allowing for quicker results. Then there's compost tumblers, easy-to-turn bins that speed up the process, compost in weeks, not months or years, by frequent oxygen infusions and heat retention. Select one based on how much plant matter you have at your disposal, how large your yard is, and how quickly you need to use the finished product. Chicken wire. This fun DIY project is not only pretty easy, but extremely aesthetically pleasing and can match almost every interior depending on the frame you are choosing to use. You will need scraps of old chicken wire, an old wooden picture frame, paint, which is optional, sandpaper, which is also optional, and a staple gun and staples. If you want to, paint your frame with a light coat of paint. Once it dries, you can lightly distress it with sandpaper to give it an aged look. Cut a chunk of chicken wire that is roughly the size of your frame. Staple it to the back of the frame. Trim if needed. Then your wireframe is done. You can use it as a jewelry or earring organizer. You can use clothespins to clip notes to the wire for an instant message board. You can also use clothespins to arrange your favorite photos for a picture collage, or just leave it bare and hang it as a simple rustic wall accent. Wooden pallets. This upcycled project is actually pretty popular in the DIY world. It's one of the most popular pallet-based projects people love making at home. It's fully functional and versatile, and they allow you all the creativity you can muster. This goes with a very minimalist home and is beautiful to incorporate in your interior design. When you get recycled pallets, look at them and notice if they look clean and have no markings on them. If you see the letters MB on the pallet, avoid them as they have transported dangerous chemicals and you don't want those in your home. The safest pallets to use are heat-treated, steam-treated, or kiln-dried pallets. Sand the pallets well with the sanding tool. Use protective gear and make sure all sides, edges, and surfaces of the pallets are smooth and lacking any splinters. Wipe the pallets to make sure you remove all dust and splinters. Vacuum the floor and make sure no splinters or wood scraps are lying around to endanger you, children, or pets. Pallets are versatile, and now it's time you choose how you want the bed to look. Use wood, lacquer, or varnish for a more rustic, natural look, or paint the pallets any color you want to match the bedroom. Let the pallets dry for a night in fresh air. Any type of tint finish or clear varnish you give them, the pallets need time to dry. Take the dry pallets into the room where you want your future bed to be. Cover the floor with plastic sheets you can remove easily to protect the floor from scratches. Put 4 pallets in a square shape. Fix the pallets with strong wood glue to ensure perfect alignment and steadiness, and then attach pallets together. You can use the drill for pilot holes. Fasten the pallets on all sides with angle irons, bolts, washers, and nuts. If you use hinges, make sure you use at least 8 of them for a double queen bed frame, 2 hinges for each of all the 4 sides of the pallets. For more comfort, you can also attach locking caster wheels at the center of each long side and each corner. Turn the bed upside down, set it in place, remove the floor sheet, and enjoy your new pallet bed frame. If you want the full instructions, go to the link provided in the sources for more information. Picture frames. Do you own a ton of earrings that you have lying around or shoved into a small box where you have to literally detangle them every time you want to pick out a pair? Well, this repurposed picture frame will help solve that problem, as well as having another beautiful interior piece to the inside of your home. First, find a deep, thick frame. Next, get your wire netting. Lay your frame on the netting and cut around the frame. It's better to have a little extra than not enough. Grab your staple gun. Then begin to staple down the netting, starting at the corner of one side. After that side is done, go to the opposite side next and pull the netting tight before you staple it down. Continue to staple all the way around the frame. If you need to, pound the staples that are poking out with a hammer until they're flush. Now you can go ahead and trim the extra netting. Turn it over and make sure there are no protruding staples. Now you can add ribbons, flowers, or even hooks along the bottom for necklaces, which will be a fun addition. Broken pots. You may think those terracotta pots are useless right now, but really, you can use them as garden markers. Break off portions of the mouth of the pot. You'll want to use the top portion of the pot so that you have nice smooth edges rather than a jagged broken one sticking up waiting to attack you in your garden. Break the pots into desired pieces with a hammer. Lightly tap where you want to break the pot to even it out a bit. Write the name of your plant with a Sharpie and then bury the base of the broken portion of the pot in the dirt alongside the plant. This is much better than throwing out the broken pots. Old rugs. Something really easy and fun to do with old rugs that you either replaced or don't match your living room is to transform them into wall art. Simply take some of the old rugs that you have, vacuum and possibly wash them. You can hang them up on the wall with nails, or if you have a large enough frame, you can put it in the frame and use it as wall art. Broken earrings. This is something that I have done personally. If you ever had a pair of earrings where the charm just broke off the hook and you don't want to throw the earring away, you can do two things. You can either purchase another hook and fix them, or you can take those charms from different earrings and convert them to necklaces for brand new repurposed jewelry. Fake flowers. If you have ever had fake flowers left over from an event or party, don't throw them out. Fake flowers are extremely destructive to the environment, and you can always reuse them for costumes, cosplays, and art. Create a base for your flower crown. Cut a length of floral wire that's long enough to wrap around the crown of your head twice, with a little room to spare. Measure your head with the wire and plan where you'd like your crown to sit. Create a loop with the wire, twisting one end around the middle of the wire in the size that you'd like. Then wrap the long end of the wire around, weaving in and out of the loop to create a strong base. Continue wrapping until you reach the end and twist the end around the loop to secure. Once you have a base, start placing your main flowers. Start with the largest blooms and place them where you'd like them. If your stems have wires in them, you can simply wrap the wires around the base of your crown. If not, use floral tape and wrap it multiple times around trimmed stems of your blooms. Using the same technique, start covering the entire loop of the crown base with your filler greenery. Every so often, you may choose to include a smaller flower. Work your way around the base until the entire crown is filled with greenery. Once you've completed the crown base by covering it with greenery, go back and add any additional flower or leaf pieces that you might like. If possible, just insert the wire stem of your florals into the wire of the crown base. If that won't work, use a glue gun to apply individual leaves and stems and attach them to the existing foliage. You can even add really cool antlers and charms to these crowns for the perfect Halloween costume. Old crayons. Do you have any broken crayons at home that you don't know what to do with? Well, instead of throwing them away, try remelting them into new crayons. Rainbow crayons are a very cool concept, and your kids will enjoy using them. First, place your crayons in a bowl and fill the bowl with water until all the crayons are covered. Let the crayons soak overnight. Next, drain the water out of the bowl and peel and break the crayons into pieces. Then, place the peeled or broken crayon pieces in your silicone mold. Use a mold that is designed to make ice cubes for water bottles. This shape is similar to chunky crayons and creates one flat side. Place the molds filled with broken crayons in the microwave and cover. Don't forget to cover, or you may ruin your microwave. If they aren't done after 3 minutes, put them in for 2 more and so on until most of the crayons look sufficiently melted. The amount of time your crayons need to spend in the microwave will vary depending on your microwave. When your crayons are thoroughly melted, remove them from the microwave and place them in the refrigerator until they are solid. Old crayons again. Another cool experiment that you can do with broken crayons is to create candles with them. Gather your supplies and set up a workspace near your microwave. This project is very simple and would be a great craft to do with a friend. Peel the paper off your crayons. You can either use an X-Acto knife or soak the crayons in water for easy peeling. Fill a plastic cup with wax and microwave for 1 minute. Give it a stir and microwave again in 30-second intervals until the wax is completely melted. Pour a thin layer of wax into the bottom of the votive and place the candle wick in the center. Let it harden. Use 1 crayon per color, fill a cup of wax, and top with a broken crayon. Microwave it for 2 minutes and then in 30-second intervals until completely liquefied. Let cool for 30 seconds or so and pour colored wax into the votive. Let the first layer dry for 20 to 30 minutes. Repeat this process and continue to pour layers of colored wax into each votive, making sure to let them dry between each layer. There are so many things that we can repurpose into new and inventive things. Living this way will help not only for you to save money, but to help reduce on trash and waste, and ultimately help the environment. We can use old lumber to create new products without having to cut down or purchase new wood. We can use copper and metal to create plant pots and old troughs to make raised beds. We can use old dishwater and use water with non-toxic chemicals to water our plants. We can recycle. We can use recycled materials to create art in our community instead of throwing it into the trash, which will reduce the size of landfills. There are so many different things that we can do that'll impact the environment positively. We can use old wood to make furniture for our houses, to build fences, doors, and other needs. We can use old wood to use fires instead of chopping new wood. We can use it for art. We can use old metal as planters by drilling holes in the bottom of the container for drainage and filling it with soil and seed. We can use old metal grates and bars as cages for plants that are vine-like. There are so many more things that I haven't mentioned, and I encourage you to do the research and find new and cool things for you to repurpose and incorporate into your everyday lives. And these are some of the resources that I utilize to put this presentation together. And if you have any questions, let me know. If you have any questions that you think about later, feel free to email me at one of the following addresses. Thank you for listening, and I hope you all will have a great rest of your day.